Mayz, and this is my homework number 6. The authors were Seth N. Greenberg and Joanna Tai. The year of publication was 2001, and it was taken from the Journal of Memory and Cognition entitled Letter Detection in Very Familiar Texts. This research posed to understand whether readers' fluency with the text affects processing of content and function words. It was unclear prior whether reading familiar texts would maintain or alter the magnitude of letter detection for function and content words. The question being investigated was whether patterns of letter detection for function and content words in the texts were affected by the familiarity of the material actually being read. Conditions. Familiar texts were taken from popular children's books and movies. 16 familiar verses were taken and consequently matched with 16 unfamiliar verses, creating 2 distinct conditions. Each of the conditions contained verses including 12 target function words and 12 target content words throughout the verses. 2 booklets were constructed to control for order effects, one beginning with a familiar verse and another beginning with an unfamiliar verse. Subjects were instructed to read each verse normally and crossing out a T wherever a T appeared, and they were also instructed to not search for the letter and likewise not return to any other content. The letter detection task concluded that the difference between target function and content words was considerably smaller for the familiar as opposed to the unfamiliar verse conditions. Also, about a 16% function word disadvantage was seen in the unfamiliar condition, but only a 6.4% function word disadvantage in the familiar condition. The strategy of example 1 was to use stimuli of familiarizing readers with certain sentences immediately before they performed the letter detection task. I thought that there were good solid conditions and that the researchers made sure to hold everything as constant and as equal as possible. Also, I would have liked to see a little bit more concentration on the differences between the content and function words themselves within each condition. But I also thought it was interesting how they used previous stimuli to familiarize and prepare for the letter detection task itself. This research relates to our experiment because we're also running a letter detection task. We're also using the same conditions using familiar and unfamiliar texts, and we're interested more precisely on the specific texts being covered for errors in content verse function words. We'll be paying close attention to the research's hypothesis and results and determining if ours holds as constant or if it proves otherwise.